Welcome to Sportsball Roundup. Now here's your hosts, Devin and Reese.
Yes, hello, and welcome to Sportsball Roundup. I am Devin. Joining me is my co-host, Reese. And Reese, since we've taken a little bit of summer vacation, so to say, I'm glad to be back. Let's kind of go over some of the major events in sports since we last were on. Let's start with NHL. The Vegas Golden Knights win their first Stanley Cup since becoming an expansion team in, 2019 they were an expansion team?
Yeah.
So a very young franchise has won the Stanley Cup, and that's kind of major. And who did they beat to win the Stanley Cup? Do you remember, Reese?
I believe they beat the Florida Panthers.
Oh, that's right. It was a battle of teams that shouldn't have ice.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but congratulations, Vegas, for their first ever franchise Stanley Cup win. The Denver Nuggets defeated your Heat in 5 games to win the NBA Finals. And honestly, the funniest part about that was Nikola Jokic's reaction when he won. He was just like, "Oh, thank God it's over. I want to go horse racing." He was actually more pumped up when he won a horse racing event and got a trophy for that versus when he won the NBA Finals. And I thought that was hilarious. What was your take on the NBA Finals and that whole thing?
Well, first off, I'm just glad we made it to the NBA Finals as a Heat fan, because we had to go through Milwaukee and Boston. I'm just glad we made it to the finals, but yeah, the Nuggets were a tall task. Even though we did beat Milwaukee and Boston, we just didn't size up too well with Denver.
Yeah, Denver's a big team with star caliber players, and it was a fun series because it was
different.
Yeah,
it was different from what we've been seeing.
Yeah, we've been seeing flashy teams in the past, and it's good to see a couple of teams that really aren't as flashy and spectacular, but play good, solid basketball. Fundamentals. The whole thing. Honestly, it reminds me of an old school game of basketball. Before the Steph Currys, everybody just putting up threes all the time.
Yeah,
it was good play, and it was refreshing to me to see that. I congratulate the Denver Nuggets on, is that their first franchise finals win?
Yeah, their first championship.
Yeah, and it goes
franchise.
Yeah, and congratulations to them and what they were able to accomplish. Also, still going on is the Women's World Cup, and the women's national team for the United States were denied the opportunity to compete for the three-peat because they were eliminated first round of knockouts by Sweden. And so the women's team will not be playing the championship for a three-peat. It was kind of shocking a little bit because, they were all hyped up, and I think everybody saw them at least making it to the next round. But Sweden put up a fight, and they ended up with the victory. What did you think about that, Reese?
Well, everybody coming into the World Cup, their money was on the United States rightfully so. And if you watched the 3 group stage games, you would quickly change your mind because they did not play like the women's national team of old. They very bad. They missed chance after chance, but they did play well against Sweden, but Sweden's also a very good team.
Yeah, and it goes to show you that if you can't turn it up, you will eventually get knocked out. If you can't just breeze through these games.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like some of the games that the U.S. had played, they just felt like they were better, and so they just weren't as fired up.
Right.
And you can't do that. And so it'll be interesting to see who the new champion will be because you know everybody's got it. The defending champ's out, so everybody's got a chance to be the new champion for 4 more years.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not wrong that whoever wins is going to be their first time
I believe so.
because
Yes.
yeah, because the U.S. has won it 3 times and like 2 other countries have won it, but none of the final 4 or 6 teams, however many is left, haven't won it at all. So
Yeah. So it'll be fun to see that coming down the stretch. Kind of moving on to MLB. Um, we got. I'm just gonna run down the standings real quick.
okay,
In the American League, in the East, the Orioles are on top, followed by the Rays, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, and Yankees are in last. In the Central Division, the Twins are on top, followed by the Guardians, the Tigers, the White Sox, and the Royals. And in the West, it's a battle of Texas with the Rangers and Astros in the 1 and 2 positions, followed by the Mariners, the Angels, and bringing up the rear is the worst record in the MLB with the Oakland Athletics, and they have the worst record at 33-82. And
yikes.
yeah, that's a very bad stat.
Yeah,
And honestly, dude, I don't know what the Athletics are going to do. I have hoped that, they would um, improve, but year after year, they just like improve for like a few games and then they just go back to not being good.
yeah,
And I don't know what the answer is to that. I think that upper management has a little bit to do with it, and you know, not having a great farm system.
yeah. And
But
it's getting so bad that they can't even fill half their stadium.
no,
It's
yeah, it's
and
awful.
that's revenue down the drain right there.
Yes,
So yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen because if you can't make revenue to pay your players and bills of stadium bills and stuff, I don't know what's gonna keep the team in Oakland.
yeah, and it's a shame because Oakland used to be a great sports town, but the Raiders have left. The weren't the Warriors in Oakland?
Yeah, they were.
The I think Golden State was the first one to leave, right?
Yeah, they went to San Francisco.
Yep,
Yeah.
and then it was the Raiders. They moved to Las Vegas, and
Hmm.
honestly, I think the writing's on the wall that the Athletics are going to be next.
Right.
I
And
don't know where they are. Did you hear any rumors?
I heard a rumor a while back that they were thinking about joining the Raiders in Las Vegas, but I don't know how far that rumor got.
Real
I don't know if
okay,
it's
that's
gonna
interesting.
happen or. or
Will
not.
will they do like they did in Oakland and make them share? I want to call it the Roomba. I don't even know what it actually is called. It looks like a
I
Roomba to
hope not.
me.
I hope not. I hope they make a separate stadium because that's a nice stadium
Yeah,
for the Raiders. I hope they keep it for themselves.
yeah, and they build something else for the Athletics.
Yeah.
Moving on to the National League, you've got the Braves with the best overall record in the MLB at 72-46. Phillies are in second place. Then you got the Marlins, the Mets, and my Nationals bringing up the rear.
At least you got a better record than Oakland.
Yes,
That's how I see it. Don't be
exactly.
the last. Don't be the
Don't.
last one.
Yep. In the Central Division, you got the Brewers on top, followed by the Reds, the Cubs, the Pirates, and then the Cardinals. Cardinals are honestly, I think, in a rebuilding year, so this doesn't surprise me that much
Mm-hmm.
that they're in last place. I went and saw a Cardinals game um, in June, and that was interesting. They played the Reds, and it was honestly what I expected. But it was still kind of interesting to see. Like, I expected them to not do well, but it was interesting to see why they didn't do well. You know, it was a mixture of not hitting very well and making mistakes on the defensive side. Like, the pitcher giving up like a couple walks to put batters on base, and then somebody makes a somebody hits like a routine line drive and they just somehow miss it, or they
Mm-hmm.
overthrow the double play. Like, it's just, I guess, the little things that you don't expect to go wrong went wrong in that game. And I suspect over the season, like, I haven't watched much Cardinals baseball, but I suspect that is an overarching theme.
That makes sense.
In the West, you got the Dodgers on top, the Giants, the Diamondbacks, the Padres, and the Rockies. What is this you got over here? Is this the wild card race?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Rays, the Astros, and the Blue Jays in the American League are all kind of fighting for wild card spots. And in the National League, we got the Phillies, the Giants, and the Marlins in wild card positions. And honestly, dude, I think that with the way the Cubs have been playing, it's not out of reach for the Cubs to do it because they've been on quite a run.
Yeah. It's like since the All-Star break, they've only lost like maybe 7 games.
Yeah, it's been
It's
ridiculous.
it has been insane. Heck, they took 2 out of 3 from the Braves, who have the best record,
Yep.
and I didn't see that coming at all.
I don't think anybody did. I really
And,
I really don't. I think that, everybody kind of counted the Cubs out,
yeah, and
and
I and
now they're
as a
making a resurgence.
yeah, and as a Cubs fan, like you said with the Cardinals, I also think that the Cubs are having a rebuilding year too, which is, I mean, they brought in a couple big names, and but there's a lot of players that in the lineup that people really haven't heard of,
Yeah.
and a lot of players that last year played in in AAA Iowa,
Yep.
and they're showing out for the major league club right now, and who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe they sneak into the playoffs. Who knows?
I think going off of that, I mean, it just goes to show you the Cubs have always had a great farm system. I mean, you see that, we see that because we live in, Iowa, and we can go to iCubs games and watch these AAA prospects um, play and come up through the ranks. And I think they're like the Cubs always have the iCubs always have a solid on the field product, and that goes to show you just how good the Cubs farm system really is.
Yeah.
I mean, they can take honestly a AAA team and turn them into a contender in the majors. And that is something that not a lot of ball clubs can say that they do. And I love it.
I do too.
So I'm reading some of the things you had sent me, and one of the questions that was interesting that you posed is, are the Orioles a real contender to win the World Series? And I mean, on paper, yes, but the game isn't played on paper, and I think the Orioles are just suspiciously too good, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Just like they shouldn't be as good as they are, and I feel like they're on a bubble and it's going to burst. I just don't know when. And they've been taking care of business. I will give them that, but I feel like some of these wins have just been like, something going their way
Mm.
that it helped them out with the win. And I think going down the stretch and playing some of these final series, that we'll get to see who the Orioles really are. Like, are they legit or are they not? And I will be paying close attention to that because I feel like, the bubble can burst at any minute. And I kind of want to be proven wrong because for some reason I have a soft spot for the lovable losers. And the Orioles throughout, you know, my life have been those kind of, lovable losers that have made some of the right decisions, and it just on paper, and it just never has panned out. And so I kind of root for them a little bit, as an outsider looking in, because my Nationals aren't going to get there. So I got to figure out some other team to root for.
Yeah.
And sometimes I land on those teams for some reason, and it's really fun to watch, and I'll have fun watching that. What are your thoughts on that? Are you surprised? And I guess, what is your take?
Well, yeah, I'm definitely surprised. But I think there's like a yes and a no to this. Like, and coming into the season, everybody was putting their money on Tampa Bay and New York for that division, and the Rays got off to a hot start. They were, I think they started like 20-4, which was
Yeah, it was something
insane.
ridiculous like that. Yeah.
And everybody just thought, oh, they're gonna run away with this division. 20-4. There's no way they lose this. And they started losing games, and the Orioles just slowly make their way to the top, and then they haven't given it back. So I mean, they've won their fair share of games to be able to stay on top, but in the matter of postseason, that's a totally different ballgame than regular season. But if they win their division and they send the Rays to the wild card, they got a shot. I'm not saying there's no shot for them. They got a decent shot. They got a decent team. You got decent pitching. It's just, can they make it?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and it'll be really fun to watch coming down the stretch.
I just can't imagine, the Rays, the Astros in the wild card.
Right? It seems
Something new.
right. New, yeah. And honestly, I want it. I want new. I want, you know, a shift because, the storyline is, who's going to be able to beat, the Yankees, the Astros, the Dodgers,
Mm-hmm. Every
the
year.
every year. And it's nice to see, shifting tides. Moving on a little bit, I know we got to get to some other things here. Preseason has kicked off in the NFL.
Oh boy, fall is here.
Yep, starting with it doesn't feel like fall.
No, it does not.
It's 1,000 degrees outside. Not today. Today it's been raining, but it has been 1,000 degrees outside. It feels like summer still, but
It was like the first day of summer, which was
right.
about 2 months ago.
Yeah, but nevertheless, we're here in mid August, and I don't take much stock in preseason because, like, if the starters suit up, which was interesting that Rodgers even didn't, but if they suit up, they're in for a series, and then it's the backups.
Yeah.
So I don't really watch preseason. I might I might look at some highlights here and there, but that's mostly for to scout out, potential fantasy if I were to do fantasy.
Right.
Not for actual, like, oh, this is how our team's going to do. But you've got I see you put on this list your preseason predictions, and
Of course.
we got to do it. Yeah.
Of course.
Who We wouldn't be a very good podcast if we didn't start doing this already.
Heck no. Preseason predictions.
Heck yeah, let's go. So you have the AFC. These are just the winners. You
Yes.
have in the AFC East the Bills winning. The North has the Bengals. The South has the Titans, and, well, yeah, the Chiefs in the West. And in the NFC, you have the Eagles winning the East. The North belongs to the Lions. The South belongs to the Saints. And the West has the 49ers.
Hmm.
With your Super Bowl being Eagles versus Bills. That is very interesting.
You got any questionable thoughts about any of those?
I do. First of all, in the North, I don't see that going that way. I think that, I think Minnesota, for what it's worth, will probably win the North. Because they just find ways to win somehow by dumb luck. And I think that Detroit doesn't have the luck factor that Minnesota has. I think Detroit is a more predictable team, and I think they probably will come in second in the North. But for some reason, I just can't count Minnesota out. I I don't know why. I think it's that random dumb luck factor.
That's fair. So you don't have any faith in Jordan Love
Mm,
for Green
I,
Bay?
I do. What I don't know about and what because Green Bay is a giant question mark to me,
Right. Of course.
and for the reason of honestly not really Jordan Love. I think he's a solid quarterback. Maybe not as flashy as Rodgers could, was and could be at times, but I think he's a solid quarterback. And so I think the question mark isn't him. It isn't the run game. It's the receiver core, where literally all of them are, second or first or rookies or second year players. Maybe we have a third year in there, but they're a very young group of wide receivers, and I feel like they have uh, proving for me to solidify their spot. And I don't know. It's a giant question mark because we've got a monumental shift in the passing game. With our quarterback um, switching over and the receiver core being very young, but I think they're better than Chicago. So I'm putting them third.
That makes
Um,
sense.
I mean, I can't argue the AFC West. I think the Chiefs will be the Chiefs because
It's kind of
I,
hard to go against the Chiefs right now.
well, especially in that division.
Well, yes.
Yeah, because the only team that I could see them even coming close would be the Chargers.
Right.
And I don't think that the Chargers have enough to actually beat them head to head. And so I think the Chiefs in the West. I think you're solid on that. In the South, yeah, Tennessee, maybe Jacksonville, maybe
Yeah.
if they have a year like they did last year, it's possible.
Yeah. It'll probably come down to like last week or something. It'll probably be really close.
It'll honestly, it'll probably be head to heads.
Yeah.
Whoever win those head to head matchups between Jacksonville and Tennessee. In the North, I think you said Cincinnati, correct?
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I don't think that anybody else has really anything for the division. I think it's kind of a weak division, and Cincinnati's just the best of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, in the East, I think Buffalo. Um, now, depending on what happens, second place will be very interesting.
You're right.
I don't
Yeah.
think New England has it, but the Jets and Miami
Ooh,
it's going to be really interesting to see which one comes out on top.
that's going to be a fun division to watch.
Yes.
All
Yes.
division games in that specific division is going to be
Yes.
awesome to watch.
Now, I've got a question for you. Do you think that we will have a season like we did last season where the NFC East is so good that all four teams could have the potential of getting in? Like, only three of them made it last year, and that was because Washington didn't understand that they could be eliminated in that one game, which I still find hilarious.
Yes.
but we had the potential to see the entirety of the NFC East be represented in the playoffs. So do you think that the NFC East could be represented in its entirety this coming season?
It very well could be. I think it depends again on Washington, because I know the Eagles are definitely going to be the Eagles. Um, the Giants are going to be a good team. Cowboys are going to are going to be the Cowboys. I expect them to have a winning record. I expect them to make the wild card, but Dallas does what Dallas does.
Yeah.
Um, Nothing new there, but I think it all depends on what type of season Washington has. They haven't been the best, but they haven't been great. They haven't been great. They haven't been terrible. So maybe if they go, I don't know, maybe 9-8, 10-7, maybe we have that. But I don't think so. I don't think they'll have a winning record this year. Washington, that is.
Yeah. In the NFC South, I think that since Tom Brady isn't there, that opens up the door for any team to win.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think you're right. I think the Saints have the best team on paper
Mm-hmm.
out of those four, and I think it'll be. I'm choosing the Saints, but I kind of like Atlanta as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be between them two. Yeah,
Yeah.
Atlanta or New Orleans.
Yeah. And in the West, I think I don't I don't see Arizona doing anything spectacular.
No. Mm-mm.
Same thing with Seattle.
I think last year was an out of body experience for Seattle.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't see them doing that again, or at
No.
least Geno Smith doing that again. That
No.
was insane.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think it'll be San Francisco or the Rams, and between those two, I gotta pick San Fran on that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Plus, I'm rooting for Brock Purdy. Come on, Brock.
right. I think that that'll be a fun. I think that'll be also a fun division to watch.
Yeah.
To see who comes out of that. And my way too early Super Bowl prediction.
Yeah.
God, it probably. I don't like agreeing with you because it's kind of boring. But I honestly think that it'll be the Eagles unless something devastating happens. I think the Eagles are the best team. And the AFC, honestly, I think that it will either be the Bills or the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Again.
Yeah. So I think the Chiefs and the Eagles will be a cool matchup to see because of because of the rematch aspect. I saw you had the Eagles and Bills, and I could see that happening, but I think I'm gonna root for the Chiefs.
You're going to root for the Chiefs?
In the
Wow.
AFC, probably
Wow.
because
You've been talking all this. You don't want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but
Are you serious?
I do enjoy a rematch, and I
I
honestly
get.
think that the Eagles kind of got robbed with that pass interference call. And back in the last Super Bowl, because they haven't been calling pass interference the entire game. And then they do on something that was questionable at best. I want to see the Eagles at least try to redeem themselves. I think it's the redemption arc that I like.
I mean, I guess I see where you're coming from, but I don't know. I just I just picked the Bills because I think they're gonna have that fire under um, each player because Damar Hamlin is back, and I mean his NFL career could have been over last year. Heck, it was his life could have been over last year. That was how scary that was. I think it was Monday Night Football
Yes,
last
yes, it
year,
was.
and I mean nobody knew what to do. They were just staring at the screen. They're staring at him on the ground in like panic or I don't know. It was just a standstill, and thankfully he's okay. And it's crazy to think he's already back to football.
Yeah, it hasn't. It's been about 6 months, probably.
I think so.
Roughly 6 months since that happened, and he's back to playing football. That's just amazing to me. And I think that the rest of the country honestly agrees with you that they're going to root for the Bills because of that underlying story of the whole Damar Hamlin thing. And the Bills Mafia is a really dedicated fan base as well.
Yes.
I think weren't they the ones that literally just started plowing and shoveling the team out so they could get to their game?
I think so. Yeah.
Like those guys are super fans. Like the Bills Mafia is a super fan base.
Mm-hmm.
And they will back their team no matter what, and I do enjoy that. And so I think that I could see the Bills getting in and to the Super Bowl, and that would be a really cool storyline. And I also would like to see the Chiefs because of that kind of redemption arc for the Eagles anyway. I don't think that really any team other than the Eagles stands out to me in the NFC. So I think you're right. I think the Eagles is correct on the NFC because I just don't see any other team doing it. And in the AFC, I think it would be probably the Bills or the Chiefs. I mean, the Bengals may surprise me, but
I mean, in the AFC, it's literally stacked. So it could be any team, to be honest, because the AFC is just stacked with power teams. I mean, you have all the returning playoff teams from last year, plus a few that still have great players, and could make the playoffs. It's just there's only how many spots? Like 6 or 7 spots in the playoffs, and there's about 9, 10 teams in the AFC that are really good.
Yeah, there aren't really just bad teams in the AFC.
No.
I mean, you've got the Browns, you've got the
And even then,
Texans.
the Texans are pretty bad. Even the Browns might surprise some people with Deshaun Watson now, but I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
you know what team's really going to be interesting? Like
Hmm.
Indianapolis.
Yeah, I was thinking about them. Yes. Yeah. They.
Indianapolis is going to be a team that will be really interesting to watch. And I'm going to put them and the Jets on the most dangerous underrated teams list. Because if it goes well for either of those teams, I feel like it has the potential to go really well.
Yeah.
And I think that I just think that if it goes well for one of those two teams I just mentioned, it will go really well, and they will probably have a decent chance of making the playoffs and maybe going to the Super Bowl.
Who knows? Who knows?
And
And this.
I think my NFC pick for that would probably be the Lions.
Yeah. They seem like they're on the verge of making it. You know, they've been bad for so long. I wouldn't say bad. I wouldn't say terrible. When they had Stafford, they were decent, but Stafford made that, the team go. But ever since they made that trade, they've been decent, and they just haven't been able to get over that hump, into the playoffs. But I think it's step by step for Detroit right now, and I think they're on the verge. I'm not saying this year, but maybe a couple years, maybe a year or two.
And honestly, I think that like the NFC North has been pretty good for a long time.
Yeah,
That the Lions have just been unfortunate with the fact that they're in the NFC North.
yeah,
And like you put them in you know, in a division that was weaker during those times, I think they would have flourished. Like, a few years ago, if you put them in the NFC South, I think they would have done really well. Have gotten at least a wild card spot, but they're in the North, and which has pretty much been dominated by Green Bay and Minnesota. The Bears have snuck in there a couple of times, but usually it's been Green Bay and Minnesota trading off the division wins, and with Chicago in the mix, but Detroit just down there. And I think you're right. I think they are on the verge of something big happening. Of them be turning that corner. Whatever metaphor you want to use, but I think they're going to be interesting to watch in the next few years.
yeah. I just think they're missing one piece. I'm not sure what that piece is, but I just think they're so close. If they add
Yep.
just one more big big piece to their roster, I think they have it.
Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see in the AFC who is your most dangerous team to watch. Because I think we agree that the NFC is the Lions with the dangerous
Yes.
underrated team.
Yeah, definitely. I would say there's a lot, but I'd uh, I'd go with New England. I think New England's I mean they're not the greatest, but they can get the job done if you let them hang around. So like, um, I think they're a little underrated. I mean, they still have Belichick, so he's obviously a great coach to have Mac Jones learn from, and it's been a couple years since Mac Jones was drafted, so I don't know. We'll see how they do in their division, but I wouldn't sleep on them.
Yeah, it will be honestly, the AFC West, or the AFC East, sorry, is probably one of the more interesting divisions to watch in the AFC because of the unknowns of what Rodgers and the Jets will be doing, and what Miami's up to.
Yeah, and everybody just thinks that Aaron Rodgers comes to the Jets. Oh, this is going to be a great division. The Jets, Dolphins, Bills are all going to fight for first, and Patriots are going to do whatever. Like
Yeah,
Patriots aren't a great team.
yeah.
They're not terrible.
No.
They're gonna fight. Yeah.
Yeah. And dude, this is getting me hyped for football, man. I can't wait. Speaking of football, we've got a lot of big news coming out of the NCAA. I mean, since we've been away, the Big Ten has added this year, that will start this year, they've added UCLA and USC. In 2024, Oregon and Washington will join the Big Ten for a total of 18 teams. The SEC will have Oklahoma and Texas added in 2024 to make a total of 16 teams. And the Big 12 will have 16 teams in 2024 with Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, and UCF joining this year, 2023. And 2024 will add Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah, which has been very bad news for the Pac-12, which has gone from, 12 to 4 by 2024.
Yeah.
With Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State being the only 4 remaining teams. And I believe that those teams won't be there.
Right. Yeah.
I believe that those 4 teams are probably going around seeing where they can fit in. Because I don't think you can be considered a Power 5 conference with 4 teams.
No way.
Like you're a small division at that. You're not a big enough conference to be considered a Power 5. And honestly, I think it should be a Power 3 with the Big 10, the SEC, and the Big 12, because the ACC doesn't really have much either. And honestly, I think the Pac-12 will be dissolved by 2025 with the remaining 4 teams going elsewhere. And we'll have a Power 4 at best, and I think the ACC is next. To be dissolved into, the Big 3, Big 10, the SEC, and the Big 12.
Yeah, like I think there's two options. Either the Pac-12 gains some like Mountain West teams or other small conference teams, or the four just go and be independents like a Notre Dame.
I don't think they'll go that route. And here's why. I think that the independents, which isn't it just Notre Dame?
No, there's like Navy and some else. I don't know. I don't know what all the independents, but there's more than just Notre Dame.
I think they'll all join conferences because of what is happening to Notre Dame, in that Notre Dame is being squeezed out of network television, nationally televised, because to make room for the Power Fives, like NBC carried Notre Dame football like exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
That was what they did. And now NBC has a Big Ten contract, and so Notre Dame is getting kind of put on the back burner in favor of Big Ten games. And they're not happy about it. But what can you do when the money from Big Ten, the draw from Big Ten is just too good?
Right.
So I think that this will force, at least Notre Dame to join a conference. I mean, I feel like Navy and some of the other independents don't care as much, but Notre Dame does, and them getting kind of squeezed out in favor of Power Five conference games will force them to join a conference. And I'm all for it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Especially when they're going to be expanding the college football playoff
yeah,
here in the next year, coming years.
because of all these teams flying around joining different conferences, the conferences themselves are trying to restructure how they play their season. Like I heard rumors, and I'm not sure if this is 100% what they're gonna do, but it makes sense that at least the Big Ten is going away with their divisions, and just have like people play, like different teams play each other, just kind of at random.
That makes sense.
Because I don't know if they can do an East versus West really anymore.
I don't think so. I don't know how that'll work with the additional teams. But.
Right. I mean, it works right now because we don't have as many teams, but the more teams we acquire, the harder it will become, and I feel like that's just the best way to do it, is just to get rid of divisions.
Yeah.
And have your teams just play each other, and you can have the rivalry games like Iowa, Nebraska, Michigan State, stuff like that. And they'll probably keep scheduling rivalry games, but then your remaining I guess conference games will just be random teams.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it. I welcome new competition because it just makes everybody better. The different playing styles of USC and UCLA will
Yeah, will it hold up in the
Yeah.
Big Ten?
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, like, and one or two things will happen. It's can defenses adjust to more West Coast air attack type offenses, and if they can those teams with that air attack retool themselves to be more of a Big Ten smash mouth style football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and I welcome it because of all those cool like question marks that we get now. Like what'll work, what won't, who needs to adjust, and it just makes the competition just better, and that'll really be fun to watch. Um, Before we get into, I guess, our season predictions for the local Iowa States, we do need to touch on the honestly still developing story. Players from Iowa and Iowa State have been charged with gambling, sports wagering,
Yeah.
records tampering, so that they don't get caught. Some of them were underage, so barring putting aside the obvious criminal stuff, with records tampering and some of them underage gambling, that's all criminal stuff. But aside from that, you've got to look at it from the NCAA's perspective as like, this damages the integrity of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of these players were found betting against their own team.
Yeah, that is bad.
Yeah. Like Hunter Deckers. So I'll run down the list here. Hunter Deckers, Dodge Saucer, Enyi Iwazurki, Drio Brock, Deshaun Hanika, Isaiah Lee, and Jacob Remsburg, all from Iowa State, have been accused of illegal sports wagering. Along with, on Iowa's side, Jack Johnson, Reggie Bracey II, Arlen Bruce IV, Owen O'Brien, Paniro Johnson, and Aaron Blum from U of I football. You've also got a baseball player, Garrett Christensen, and a basketball player, Aaron Eulis, for Iowa, that have also been charged with these crimes. And some of those names are really important.
Oh yeah, they're probably familiar to a lot of Iowans.
Yes. Arlen Bruce is one of them. I mean, he has since used the transfer portal and transferred out of Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
But Aaron Blum is a kicker.
Yeah, I want to say he's our backup kicker for the season.
Yep.
But not now.
Nope.
Not now.
Because the NCAA has a zero tolerance policy. So if they were found guilty, but don't face jail time, they still won't make it on the field.
Right. And I just
Because they will be
can't
stripped
believe,
of their eligibility.
right? And I just can't believe the Hunter Decker's one for Iowa State starting quarterback for Iowa State. Like, I just can't believe these guys would destroy their careers and opportunities like this.
Yes, and
Destroy all your opportunities to make a living and go play pro ball, and to throw it all away to bet on a game to maybe make like $200 when you're probably gonna go make millions. I just don't get it. They just got caught red-handed and done. And half of these players just might end up locked up for this, and it's just sad to see.
Yeah, and I mean it's Kirk Ferentz had a press conference about it where he, obviously you can't comment on the individual cases and stuff like that, but you can kind of make overarching statements. And one of the things he said was that, he feels like it is going on in every conference, that the more time passes, the more allegations will come up for various teams, which I do think is very possible. And he also said that, this has been going on for, under the table for decades, and it's just easier to do now, and so more people are getting caught up in it. And I think that is a very likely possibility. And that the more, time passes, the more allegations will come out for various teams.
Yeah, because I believe the state of Iowa is the first one to actually look into this, because I think all the other states really haven't, thought about it or actually gone and looked at it. And I think we're the first state to actually look into it, go do something about it, not look the other way. If that's what some states do, I don't know. I'm not saying that's what they do, but I don't know. But this is probably going to enable a lot of the other states to start looking into it.
And it will give them kind of like a precedent in order to, like, kind of a playbook, so to say, in order to...
Yeah, a cheat sheet on how to do it and
what you're looking for, all that stuff.
Right.
It's unfortunate, but I think, like I said, the more time passes, the more others, like you said too, the more other states will start investigating this, and the more we'll see that it's an issue.
Yeah.
And so with that out of the way, I want to kind of briefly look at schedules here for Iowa and Iowa State.
I can't believe we're almost 2 weeks away from first game. I can't believe.
Looking at Iowa State, they've got, that's UNI.
Yep, they host. Yep, FCS UNI.
Then they host Iowa. Then they're at Ohio, at Oklahoma State, at Oklahoma versus TCU, or home versus TCU, at Cincinnati. Then their bye week and then they're at Baylor. They host Kansas. Then they go over to BYU. Then they host Texas, and they round out with the road game at Kansas State. Looking over at the U of I, Iowa, they host Utah State on the road, like I said, at Iowa State, the big Cyhawk game. Then they're home versus Western Michigan. They're at Penn State, home against Michigan State, home versus Purdue, at Wisconsin, host Minnesota. They have the bye. And then the game we're going to, they're at Northwestern, but they're playing at Wrigley Field.
It's going to be awesome.
It is going to be very cool. And then after that, they host Rutgers. And then they host Illinois. And they finish out the season at Nebraska. You have Iowa State at 6-6 and Iowa at 10-2. I think I agree with your Iowa State schedule.
Well, I just want to say I picked Iowa State 6-6 before I heard the news on Hunter Decker's being called out on his scandal, his tampering scandal. Okay. So they're going to have to start a different quarterback. So it might be less than that now.
I do agree with it, except for I think I think they might be 4-8 because I don't know if they can feel out a new quarterback. In time to beat Ohio and Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So I think they'll end up 4-8.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough.
Yeah. And Iowa, I think that's correct. They might be 8-4. Because I don't know. Purdue always makes me nervous. For some stupid reason.
I know Purdue's the thorn in our side right now, but
especially if we're doing well at that point in the season, Purdue's really just a thorn and a giant killer in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And I think that we probably will have some trouble with Minnesota for some reason.
I don't know.
So I could
feel
see
like
8-4.
That's reasonable. I just think as long as all of our guys stay healthy, that we have a really good team.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and it will be a good season for Iowa, I feel like. But a couple weeks we'll start finding out.
It's close.
Yes, it is. So for Reese, I'm Devin. It has been an honor. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day.